welcome. Welcome to 5 Minutes with Robert Adams, where I share my findings from the Bible about the end time, and especially that which concerns the return of Jesus. This is episode 16. In the last episode, I shared how that when Jesus comes, he will gather the believers to himself in the clouds. So what will become of the believers after the great gathering? Where will they go? Paul wrote in 1 Thessalonians that the believers will be caught up together in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so we will be with the Lord forever. We can compare what Paul writes to Christ's own teaching in the book of Matthew. Having described his second coming after the Great Tribulation, he ends the account by saying that those who belong to him will be gathered by the angels when he appears in the clouds. As in Paul's description of the return of Christ in 1 Thessalonians, the end of the account hangs literally in the air. Only after several parables about his return does Jesus tell us what will then take place. Jesus informs us that after his descent, all the nations will be gathered before him to be judged. This happens on the earth. And since we are told that when the gathering of the believers takes place, they will then be with the Lord, as Paul says, we can safely assume they will accompany Jesus in his descent to the earth after having met him in the clouds. This conclusion aligns with the meaning of the Greek term that is used for the coming of the Lord in 1 Thessalonians. The term is parousia and was used for a visit of the Caesar or high-ranking official to a city. The rulers of the city went out to meet him and escort him back to the city on the final part of his journey. This seems to imply what will happen when Jesus returns. The believers from the whole world will meet the Lord in the air, as Paul says, and then escort him to the earth. We read in 1 Thessalonians that the believers will be caught up in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. The word meet in Greek is antesis. This word is also used at the end of the book of Acts, where we read that believers from Rome went out to meet Paul. Here we have an example of how this word was used at the time the New Testament was written. In the same way as Paul continued to Rome with the believers who came out from Rome to meet him, so will Jesus, when he comes, continue his descent to the earth with the believers who are caught up from the earth to meet him in the air. Another passage in the Bible where the word antesis appears is in the book of Matthew, where Jesus told the parable of the coming of the bridegroom. As was customary, a group of virgins, that is, bridesmaids, went out to meet the bridegroom. Here we have the same word, antesis. The virgins were to greet the bridegroom and escort him on the last leg of his journey to the house of the bride, from where the virgins left to meet the bridegroom. This illustrates the sequence of events at the return of Jesus. In the same way as the bridegroom continues on his way to the house of the bride along with the virgins who came from a house to meet him, so will Jesus, when he comes, continue his descent to the earth with the believers who are caught up from the earth to meet him in the air. What you have just heard is based on an excerpt of a book I've written called The Approaching Apocalypse. You can get information about this book from my website, lastdaysdetective.com. Thank you for listening.